TikTok, bro. Hold up, sex.
Hey, get off my sister, bro. Get off my sister. Hey, if you touch my sister again, I'm gonna have to put my phone down, bro. Halia, crunch her ass to get it over with, bro. Crunch her ass to get it over with, Halia. Yeah, crunch her ass, Halia. Crunch her ass, Halia. Crunch her ass, Halia. Crunch her ass, Halia. Fuck her up.
What's up, bitch?
You better get your girl before she get fucked up even more. You just leaked her ass.
Your Honor, this is a case of tragedy. Tragedy that resulted in the killing of a young woman named Halia Culbertson. Halia was 17 years old at the time of her death. Your Honor, this tragedy is a direct result of rage. To put it plainly, Brianna Berrezzini stabbed Halia Culbertson because she was angry. There is no doubt that Brianna Berrezzini's actions on March 26 of 2023 were provoked by Halia Culbertson. Halia wanted to engage in a fistfight with Brianna. Halia began arguing with Brianna inside of the 161 smoke shop when the two ran into each other by mere coincidence. Halia challenged Brianna to a fight. When asked to leave the 161 smoke shop, Halia proceeded to wait for Brianna outside. Once Brianna came outside, Halia still pushed for the two to have a fist fight. And that's exactly what Halia did, Your Honor. She engaged. She slapped Brianna Berrezzini in the face. Your Honor, all of that is fact. It is reasonable that those actions would anger Brianna Berrezzini. However, none of those actions justify Brianna Berrezzini taking a knife and plunging it into Halia's clavicle. Rather, that is an act of unjustifiable rage. As is a disproportionate response to a slap. Your Honor, today this court has the responsibility of deciding the appropriate sentence for Ms. Berrezzini. I anticipate that the defense will ask the court to determine that Halia's actions are mitigating facts that warrant Ms. Berrezzini being sentenced to a term of probation. Your Honor, the state submits to the court that the plea resolution in this case already factored in the mitigating circumstances surrounding this case. The unjustified of Halia Culbertson warrants the maximum prison sentence allowed by law. Your Honor, you've already heard from the family of the victim. Their grief, their thoughts, their loss, all of this gives this court justification to sentence Ms. Berrezzini to prison. Your Honor, throughout this case, there was a pre-sentence investigation done where there's comments about the offender's version of the events. And I think State's Exhibit A shed some light into the version of the events that Ms. Berrezzini has offered forth to this court.
It appeared to me from watching the video that it was a fist fight. She took the knife out of her pocket somewhat surreptitiously. She was backing away from her, but she got slapped, and then she moved away from her and she came forward with the knife. It's very clear from the video. She could have taken the slap. That might have been the end of it. People shouldn't bring weapons to a fist fight.
Your Honor, and that's exactly the state's point that it wishes to make, that this is not a case where a knife was brandished to avoid a conflict. This is a case where a knife was on his side, and then once Halia Culbertson engaged, she was eventually by Ms. Berrezzini. Your Honor, that type of conduct is not conduct indicative of self-defense. That's conduct that's indicative of rage. Your Honor, there's been some comments about text messages that were sent in this case, and I think that it's important to know what the state thinks that the text messages demonstrate throughout this case. The text messages demonstrate that there was an ongoing feud already between the defendant and the victim of this case. Judge, there's no way to mince words here. There was bad blood between the two. The text messages demonstrate that Miss Berrezzini was mad at her. She was mad at Halia. It demonstrates that the fuse, but that to get angry between the victim and the defendant was short. It demonstrates that when Halia and Brianna began to argue and fight, that fuse to become enraged was very short. And the state submits to you that Miss Berrezzini, when she became enraged, did exactly what she had thought about in the past. She said Halia Culbertson. Your Honor, in my closing remarks, I just would like to note this from the pre-sentence investigation, because I agree with the PSI writer. The PSI writer writes that there was an accountable attitude towards the incident offense expressed by the offender. Unfortunately, she has a tendency to assume victim stance by focusing on the alleged actions of the victim rather than her own. Your Honor, I think that that's an articulate summation of what happened in this case. Your Honor, the purposes of felony sentencing, as you know, are to protect the public from future crime by the offender, to punish the offender, and to promote effective rehabilitation of the offender. Those overriding principles in this case demand prison. Your Honor, the state asks this court to give Ms. Berrezzini the maximum potential prison sentence allowed by law. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll hear from the defense in litigation.
Your Honor, thank you. I have submitted a sentencing memorandum wherein I address all of the factors I believe the court must consider in deciding whether this case is one that is more serious or less serious, whether recidivism is more likely or less likely. And in my memorandum, I've encouraged the court to come to the conclusion that although this is a serious offense, that this particular form of the offense is less serious compared to other forms of the same offense. I don't by any means want to minimize the effect that this has had on Ms. Culbertson, her family and friends. I appreciate their being here today and the opportunity they had to address the court. But there are some factors I think that we would like to highlight. This summary, and I think that some people have inferred or implied or maybe out and out said that there was a challenge to fight that was from Halia to Brianna, and that challenge was accepted, and that this was somehow mutual combat. Well, Your Honor, I would suggest that that is not so. What I'd like to do is present, if I may, some security video that shows from the store kind of what happened right outside the store. And for the record, if it's all right, I'm going to fast forward this to, well, I guess we're pretty close to there. I apologize. 24:45 as the timer is on the upper right-hand side. Back up just a smidgen, I apologize. What we see here, and I apologize, in the upper right-hand corner is 22:45:51, and that's Ms. Culbertson leaving with the friends that she was with after being told to leave the store. Now, Your Honor, I'm going to fast forward this, because there's a period of time, to 48. 47:25, I'll do it right there. And there, Your Honor, you can see Ms. Culbertson pacing back and forth in front of the store. And there, 22:48 and 24 seconds is when Brianna and her friend exit the store. Now, it has been certainly implied that she came out to accept the challenge to fight Ms. Culberson. But I believe that the evidence is anything but that. She comes out with drinks in her hand, not alcoholic drinks, no weapon in her hand, clearly not coming out in order to engage into a fight. Further, as I play this video a little further, we see that she and her boyfriend take a direct path to the car in which they had come. They didn't go looking for Ms. Culberson's friends. They were minding their business, thinking it had been somehow resolved or over, and they were heading just to peacefully go home. Again, no weapon, drinks in her hand, which makes it difficult to fight somebody with drinks in your hand, but it's clearly that she wasn't coming out expecting to be involved in a fist fight, the mutual combat which has been implied. And then you can see that Ms. Culberson approaches from what on this video is from the left. That's, unfortunately, we have no volume. However, Mr. Barrage, who was a friend of Ms. Culberson's, had the opportunity and took that opportunity to video Ms. Culberson as Ms. Culberson was waiting for Brianna to come out of the store. I'd like to show you.
Halia, what you about to do, bro?
Come outside the door, man!
Where's she at, bro? Where's she at, bro?
Right in here, bitch! Come outside!
She's scared, bro.
Right, you just gonna take your time and what?
She's scared. Halia, you should drag her out the store, Buzz.
I'm outside! Like, what, bitch?
No, we waiting right here till you get your ones. I've been waiting to see her ass get beat for a minute, bro.
Talking about cocaine. Who was sitting there doing cocaine?
You know what that clearly shows is
Halia.
there's a significant period of time when Ms. Culberson is waiting. Ms. Brianna comes out with drinks in her hand. There is a glass door, but there's posters or pictures or whatever covering that. I think it aptly disputes the fact that this was a mutual combat. Let's get into a fist fight, and then fist fight got out of hand. And at that time, Brianna had pulled it. In watching and reviewing the video that was played about the actual events a little while ago, and I had mentioned in the sentencing memorandum, I had counted no less than 30 steps that my client took backwards. She pulled from her pocket and took 15 more steps backwards away from Ms. Culberson. She didn't want to engage at all. This was more an assault on behalf of Ms. Culberson than a mutual fist fight. And at the time, as Mr. Barrett said, she's afraid. She was in fear, and she was absolutely afraid. When her friend tried to jump in and help, Mr. Barrett threatened him.
You know, where's Mr. Barrett? He should have been charged. He encouraged all this, yeah. Sit down.
Nobody stopped it. And there were people there that could have said, hey, you're my best friend. You don't need to do this. Let's stop it. Stop. They could have stopped it at any time, and nobody did. Instead, they videoed it for content to post later and be funny or famous. And they did so knowing that an assault was going to take place. And that probably should anger us more than almost anything else. But that said, as I've mentioned, she was in fear. She was backing up. The evidence is clear that at the time after she was slapped, now don't forget that she had been pushed first and threatened and slapped, and then she went forward and lunged at Ms. Culberson. And for that,
Well, this is the reason we have plea bargains, because of all this. But your client, no doubt, approached her with a knife after being slapped.
100%.
And Aaliyah was moving away from her. And that's why we have this plea bargain, and that's why it was pled the way that it was pled. Your client, I agree, it didn't instigate it, but once it started, it was a fist fight.
well,
So,
But-
and then she pursued her.
we don't disagree with that. At the moment, she was approaching Ms. Culberson, who was backing up at that moment. The fight, however, or the struggle, whatever how you want to call it, continued after that with, of course, Ms. Culberson continuing to beat Brianna. But all that said, yes, I 100% agree that that is why this was pled the way it was. There was certainly sufficient indicia of self-defense where a jury may well have found that she was not at fault of creating the situation, did not use unreasonable force, was in reasonable and honest fear of imminent serious bodily harm or death. And that is why it was pled the way it was, because there was certainly an opportunity to present that. But the fact that we did not present that to a jury does not mean that the court should not count that toward the mitigation and the mitigating circumstances in this case. So appreciate that, Your Honor. Everything else, Your Honor, I've mentioned in the sentencing memorandum, with the exception of one thing I would like to add. From the very first time that I met Brianna and her family, which was early April of 2023, she has expressed remorse and an understanding of the harm that she had caused. It's one of the very first conversations that we all had in my office, was the effect that this had on the Culberson family and friends. And I know that there has not been an opportunity for her to send a letter or apologize or try to even explain what happened that night, because I made it clear to everybody they should have no contact. We didn't want to make things worse. So for that, that was my decision, and my client was following my directions in that. Your Honor, as I suggested in the sentencing memorandum, we believe that a period of community control would be appropriate based on the specific factors and circumstances of this case. Thank you.
I never once thought I would be here today with these charges. I also have never been one to start a fight. I'm always the person to back away from confrontation. Not a day goes by that this incident hasn't been on my mind. I understand and feel for the victim's family, as I know the harm I have caused them is indescribable. I also feel for my own family, as the situation has caused them a lot of pain. I can understand and appreciate the harm that I have caused now. I will be living with this guilt the rest of my life. I took a life, and I understand the victim's family will suffer for the rest of their lives, as will my family for what I've put them through. I pray and will continue to pray for all parties involved.
All right, thank you. There are mitigating factors here. She is eligible for probation. I'm not going to give her probation, but she's eligible for probation. Your family's going to get to see you, spend time with you, watch you grow up, see your wedding. They'll never get that opportunity. I do believe that the case was, I don't control plea bargains, but I think it was an appropriate plea bargain. I was fully ready to go to trial. We started a trial. I don't make the decisions about plea bargains, but I think it was an appropriate one, having watched and reviewed all this. So the court's considered the factors in sentencing in 29, 11, and 12, and gone through the more serious factors, less serious factors. You have no record whatsoever. You have a lot of people who think a lot of you, and you obviously have a lot of good things in your life. So did she. That's what makes this a tragedy. I'm going to give you a 3-year prison sentence, 3 days jail credit. You are going to have the ability for early release, and I will consider that at the appropriate time. They'll have the right to come to court and dispute that. You will go to prison. If you have a bad prison record, you're not getting out early. So you need to avoid conflict in prison and or any serious rule violations. Once if you get out of prison early, you'll be under the court's supervision and probation, my supervision. If you don't get out early, you'll serve your sentence, and when you do get out, you will be supervised for a period of 1 to 3 years. It's called post-release control. Post-release, you're out of prison. Control of prison authorities will assign you a parole officer and monitor your behavior. If you would violate, you could go back for another 1.5 years. So if everything went wrong for you, you could do 4.5 years. You do well in prison, take programming, you did accept responsibility here, you have the chance to get out early. They're going to take you into custody now. You may have her sign that form, please, prison imposed.
Your Honor, would you waive the fine and court costs?
Fines and court costs are waived.
Thank you.
The weapon will be confiscated and destroyed. I do want to thank everybody. I think everybody obeyed the rules of the court in a tough situation.